So I will be a bit of a different talk mine right now. So yeah, as Karina already said, I'm Jessica. I'm a senior developer at Grade. I am a core contributor. Maybe you have seen the 2024 theme. I was co-lead of that. And I have been a contestant at 4 speed build challenges in 2024 and 2025. So yeah, I do have some experience with that, I would say. So these were all 3 of them were in person and 1 of them was online. You maybe recognize 1 or 2 people there, except from Jamie, maybe. So I have been challenged with 4 different websites to build. And if you're wondering, like, what is the legend thing? Why does she say she's a legend? Like, I did not say that. Other people said that. So yeah, that's why it's called like that, the talk. So for those of you that do not know what a speed build challenge is, basically it is 2 contestants. They get an unknown website. You may have seen it before, but I never saw these websites before that I had to tackle. You have 30 minutes and you rebuild it in the site editor. So it is really a challenging thing because like the time pressure. And if you think 30 minutes is long, it is not. 30 minutes go over so fast. But it is quite intense and it's a really good way to learn what you can actually do within the site editor and WordPress, native WordPress itself. So why does this matter and why is it like a good thing to look at it from this perspective? And well, it is entertaining, but it is not so much about a competition. Of course, there's 2 people doing the same. They have different approaches. They kind of compete, but it is not really the competition. So for me, it was never like I have to win this because it was never about that. It was what I could make out of it in a very short amount of time. And it is more really about the mindset and the strategies you use, as well as the tools. And I think the interesting approach here in sharing this is like, this can be directly useful in client projects, like for like rapid prototyping or quick iteration, because we all know if you've ever done client projects, there's very often the situation that you are under pressure and have to do something quickly because the client came around last minute and deadlines coming up and yeah, all of that. So yeah, I will walk you through a bit of an example and how I would look into this. So I've taken the website of the WordCamp here as an easy example because you've probably seen it before when you bought a ticket. And basically what I'm starting with when I have these 5 minutes before we actually start building, there's like, we have 5 minutes about looking at the website, getting a feeling for it, what is on the website. And what I look out for is the first structure. So, okay, here we have a header, we have a main hero component, and then below there's like 3 columns with information in it. So that is the basic structure. Then I look at key elements. So, okay, I have a logo, there's a navigation, very normal looking website. There's a little top bar at the very top of it. There is image, text, buttons, another image, and a background image in the first hero section. You can't see it on the screenshot, but it actually spans the whole width of the viewport. And then, well, you have 3 columns. Okay, this is what I'm thinking about it. I also like to identify the colors, but because if you add the colors, you very quickly get a better feeling for it. So here we have dark blue, orange, white, and kind of black / very dark blue. And everything else is like, screw it, it's not that important. Fonts, if you can quickly find it out and it's maybe a Google font, then you can add it. But everything else is just, forget it, because you do not have time to like get all the fine details right. So the strategy in action, I kind of started with this already a bit, is like identifying the structures and what sections do we have? So we have actually 4 sections for this particular bit of the website. So, and thinking about the header, for example, you would probably like to combine the top bar with the header section into one, and then have the real content, everything that is below that, for example. And then the common arrangements, as I said, like the site logo and the header and the navigation, is like you see that very commonly on websites. Maybe a little bit different, but this arrangement of the logo and the navigation is fairly common. And as well as like having a image on the on either side in a 2-column section, and then text, a heading, text, and buttons below it. We all know that. We have seen that before. It's always on so many websites. And yeah, already think of the blocks you can use. I already did that on the last slide a bit, so I went ahead of myself. And yeah, you have headings, you have text, buttons, image, columns, icons maybe. So the very common things you always have around. And I think the most important thing is to know what actually the site editor offers to you already. So that is the actual toolbox, because if you would first have to add something, another plugin, you can do that if you feel comfortable using it. But I think knowing what the site editor offers you already without adding any other plugins, I think is really beneficial. So the first thing you can look at is like common blocks. So really the individual parts that are always around. It's paragraphs, headings, images, buttons. Every website has that. And there are actually blocks for it in the editor. And then the second layer of it is container blocks. So everything group, row, stack, grid, which is like one block actually with 4 different variations. Then you have the columns block as one option, and then you have the cover block. So these are basically kind of doing the same, but they're doing it differently. And I think the most important thing here is to know when to use what block, because the group block behaves a bit differently than the cover block, for example. But both can, as of today, both can have a background image, for example. And it really is good to know what is the difference and what the way the content is on the actual website, what is the best way to replicate that within the site editor. Just let me check. And the last one is actually patterns. As a pre-built combination of blocks, and so container blocks and the common blocks. I personally never use patterns so much on the speed builds, because for me, it's always like, okay, I first have to find the right one. There's different inputs where you can get them. And I'm way quicker in putting the puzzle pieces together of a certain section, because I know the common blocks and the container blocks that I can use. But if you're feeling super comfortable and know you have like your own pattern set up, then it's also a very good way to like speed up the process. You do not have to rebuild everything yourself from your own. Yeah. So the quick wins you can have, or you should work with, is another thing to speed up the process. So approximate and replicate is something that, now it sounds a bit weird, but what it basically is that especially with spacings, so every theme has its own definition of how wide the spacings are and the presets are set. Just use whatever is there and don't try to fill in, okay, this has been 5 pixels from the top and 6 pixels from the left. That's not going to work if you're like under pressure and have to do things in 30 minutes. So that will just cost you so much time in the fine details. As I said, ignore the details for now and basically just use whatever is there. Or when you see that there's some spacing, you cannot get around it, use a spacer block for the time being until you can then actually go over and really work through all of the details. Fake it till you make it. So when you have like a query, let's say there's a display of blog posts on there. So what you would do in a perfect environment would be, okay, you would go in and add the blog posts, create a query loop all of these blog posts, add the template. That costs too much time. For the time being, you can say, okay, it's let's say three in a row or two in a row, and it's always the same layout, image on the top, and then there's date, there's title, and there's the excerpt. You can just build that out even without a query loop. So the visual is there, but it's not fully functional. You can build the functionality later, because if you try to put in the query loop first, you waste so much time adding the data, setting everything up. And for speed build, it's mostly just visual. So my results have never been fully functional, even if they looked like it. And reuse existing content and adjust it later is another one. So what that means is that you can, like say, you have alternating sections. So you have text on the left, image on the right, and then the next section, it's just flipped around. It's image on the left and text on the right. You can rebuild each section on its own, or if you're using columns, for example, that would be one way to do it. You could just copy the first one you did, duplicate it, and just swap the columns, the order of the columns. And that just saves you so much time instead of adding another image, adding another heading, adding another paragraph. Skip that. So that makes you way faster in just reusing the existing content. And then if there's like little differences in like background color or whatever, spacing or whatever, you can do that later on if you want. But the structure, the general structure is already there. So the mindset is basically combined of three things, which is prioritize. So prioritize the most important stuff, like what is the actual important stuff of the website that needs to be on in order for the website to make sense. Progress over perfection is like skip the things and keep going, because well, if you're under time pressure, wasting your time with fine details is not going anywhere. And well, keep the momentum. So when you're stuck with the details, and I've seen that in other speed builds a lot, that people get too much into, oh, I need to upload the right font for it. Where do I find it? Oh, I need to download it from a website. Screw it. It just doesn't make any sense. Grab any font you like, just add it through Google Fonts. It's super easy today, just as an example. And yeah, keep going, because if you get too much in the fine details, you're going to miss the deadline. And yeah, why does it matter for client work? And this is so bringing these ideas from the speed build, which is a fun challenge, to the actual client work. You can use it for rapid prototypes. Let's say client wants a new page with certain information in it, and then you just go over it and not care so much about the details, but you're giving it a rough structure and saying, okay, is this actually what you want to do? And then you can have very early conversations on, does that content make any sense, or do you need any better CTAs or something? So it gives you the opportunity, instead of you building everything up front at once without any input from your customer, may result into not having or building the wrong thing instead of actually getting the feedback early enough from your client. And this also gives you the opportunity to have very flexible iterations, because when you're not waiting too long and finish the whole product in its entirety, you can very easily spot things up front and get in touch with your client early on. And one thing that is, I think, very interesting, if you're using just the core blocks, but what WordPress offers to you without any additional like block libraries or whatever, your site becomes accessible by default, because you're basically working with what's already in core, and everything that is in core is actually made so that it is accessible. So this is probably one of the most interesting things I found, that every website I did this way kind of followed really accessibility standards. Of course, if you're using a bad color contrast, this does not work. But usually if you take this into consideration, then it's really easy to not have to do extra work afterwards just to get the accessibility right, if this is something you have to look out for. And I mean, we're in Europe, we have to kind of already do that. So yeah, it's just a nice feature there. So the takeaways here are analyze fast, focus smart. So really do not spend too much time about all the fine stuff, and just make sure you have the big picture first and focus on what really matters. What is the content that really has to stand out and needs to be there? And then use the right tools. So I think WordPress can offer a lot already just out of the box without you needing to add any other plugins or tools. And done is always better than perfect. So if you're really under time pressure, it's like the Pareto principle, so 80-20, 80% of the work just takes 20% of the time. And if you're like under time pressure and for like 30 minutes, you have to do something, there's just things you need to skip. So with that, thank you so much for listening.